Greetings and welcome to the December 2021 Family Catechesis session. Most of you know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Donna Kinsey. I am the Family Catechesis Coordinator on your Family Faith Formation team here at Our Lady of the Angels at the Franciscan Renewal Center. Parents, this opening presentation is geared for you and for older kids 6th grade and up. The purpose of this presentation is to give you some background and insight into this month's topic so that you can engage with your children in an at-home family catechesis session, which is provided for you on this page below the video. Your at-home session consists of a scripture study, scripted prayer for your family to take part in, and a creative activity that goes with this month's topic. So let's jump into what we are talking about this month. As Catholic Christians, we hear quite a bit at Mass and in our sessions that we are called to help others. And I think most of us have an instinctive understanding of what that means. However, if your family is like mine, the issue is not in understanding what service means, but in finding opportunities and time to serve. But just for the sake of consistency with our other sessions, let's take a look at the Merriam-Webster definition for service. So here's the definition, and the one that we're really going to focus in on for the purposes of our discussion is under defining service. It is definition 2C, contribution to the welfare of others. Like I said, pretty intuitive to what we know and understand when we talk about service to others, right? So how are we called into service to others specifically as Christians and Franciscans? In order to understand this better, I am going to ask for two awesome guys to help explain. And first up, we have Pope Francis. So Pope Francis has a multitude of quotes out there in regard to charity and service to others. And so for this presentation, I have chosen 4 of them that I think really encompass what he's trying to tell us about service. First up, service is the sign of true love. Those who love know how to serve others. Pope Francis says, Christ leads us to go out from ourselves more and more, to give of ourselves and to serve others. True charity requires courage. Let us overcome the fear of getting our hands dirty so as to help those in need. And this last one, I know for me in particular, really speaks to my Franciscan heart. Rivers do not drink their own water. Trees do not eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine on itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other. Isn't that just beautifully Franciscan? Which leads us into actually our next person to get a little bit of wisdom from in regard to service to others, and that is St. Francis of Assisi. St. Francis says, where there is charity and wisdom, there is neither fear nor ignorance. Men lose all the material things they leave behind them in this world, but they carry with them the reward of their charity and the alms that they give. And lastly, start by doing what's necessary. Then do what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. Fortunately, we are not on our own with this as Christians. Within the Catholic Church are networks of resources that have been formed and grown specifically to allow us as Christian families to take part. Locally, we have St. Mary's Food Bank, St. Vincent de Paul, Andre House, and the Faith in Action Ministries at the Casa, which I will talk about more in just a moment. This is a major mission, not just of us here at the Casa, but for the Church as a whole. In fact, it is plausible that the most essential service that the Christian church should provide is the active community outreach. Some might argue that this is a responsibility that is more civic than spiritual. Therefore, it's a government and state responsibility to care for the poor and impoverished, more than a responsibility that should fall to religious institutions. While it makes sense that some funding and organization for community programs could originate in government, college students expressed in a recent study their belief that serving the poor of our community should be a central component of the church's mission. Generation Z, which is defined as those born between 1997 and 2012, feel a strong responsibility to help the poor and impoverished. The reality is that having community outreach programs available not only draws in young adult members to the church, but also helps to fulfill their sense of purpose to the poor. So, we know the what, we know the why. Now let's take a look at how we do this. How can families meet this call? So, we're going to look at two different ways that they can, and the first is within the family itself. And there are many different ways that we can meet this call. There's a really good chance that at least one member of your family identifies with the acts of service love language. At its core, an act of service is about someone going out of their way to meaningfully help and support the other person. When people take initiative to ease some of the responsibilities and burdens of another person, it helps that person to feel taken care of, safe, and loved in return. And in our in-person session for this month, one of the ways that we address serving others, ourselves, and our families is through the carrying out of traditions. When traditions take place on a regular basis, they bring predictability and consistency to our lives. In addition to the pleasure and the fun of coming together and practicing a tradition, they help to remove us, at least temporarily, from the craziness of the outside world. We get reassurance that things are as they should be and things will be all right through the practice of traditions. Traditions fulfill important criteria for achieving the 4 B's of our senses of being, belonging, believing, and benevolence. Being refers to appreciating ourselves and our strengths and feeling grounded in our core identity. Belonging refers to our personal comfort in knowing that we are an integral part of an important group, such as our families. Believing. We talked a lot about believing in our first session in regard to faith and belief in God. Believing means that we have a set of higher principles and values by which we live our lives. And benevolence refers to the extent to which we enhance the lives of others, be they family, friends, or strangers. And through that benevolence, we leave a positive emotional footprint in the world. It's interesting to note that nearly 1/3 of all annual charitable giving happens in December. The main reason for this is the abundance of traditions and customs that are taking place at this time of year, spurring our psychological human impulse to practice benevolence. And studies and research has proven that acts of benevolence will have the biggest impact when done on a community level, which leads us now to how we can serve as a family within our community. And we can do that by looking at God's creation. And I've broken that down into 3 sections for us for today. First, we serve each other as humans. Certainly those in need, certainly those in our families. And how do we do that? Well, we go out into the community, and there are organizations that are set up that we can go and help with. Feed My Starving Children, Andre House, St. Vincent de Paul are just the tip of the iceberg in organizations that are available for us to get involved with helping our fellow humans. Next, we look at our furry friends that live among us, the animals, also a very important part of God's creation. And how do we care for them? How do we give service to them? Well, there's organizations available such as the Arizona Humane Society, in which families can volunteer. Even younger children are welcome to volunteer, and there's activities and things that they can do to help the animals. And lastly, let's take a look at Mother Earth. God's creation and Mother Earth, and God's gift to us through Mother Earth, means that it's our responsibility to take care of her. And one of the really wonderful things about this is you don't need an organization to do this. As a family, you can make the decision to take a Saturday, go for a hike in the desert, and while you're out hiking, take a trash bag with you and just clean up whatever you may come across as you are out in creation, and make sure that you're caring for Mother Earth. Beyond that, in our homes, we can make sure that we are recycling on a regular basis and we are using reusable materials as much as we possibly can. At the CASA, we have an entire department that is devoted to putting faith into action. Families are encouraged to participate with groups such as CASA Habitat for Humanity, the Hunger Action Ministry, the Veterans Ministry, and many, many more. I would encourage you to contact the Faith and Action Department to learn more about these ministries, and you can do that by emailing socialconcerns@thecasa.org. And of course, you can also get more information on this department at our website, www.thecasa.org. The best way to begin, though, is with Scripture. So I close this presentation with inviting you to download the Scripture study below, gather your family, and talk about the message that Luke is sending in the Gospel reading that I have provided from the third Sunday of Advent. Enjoy, and I will see you again next month for our January session when we take a look at the Christian meaning of love.